Good evening. I'm Michael J., representing the League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County. Founded nationally in 1920 and locally in 1956, the League is a nonpartisan organization with more than 700 affiliates in all 50 states. Our goals are to encourage informed and active participation in government, increase an understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League never endorses candidates or political parties. Membership is open to all people age 16 and older of any gender, and we invite you to join. Tonight's forum is being recorded, and the recordings will be available on our website, lwvbellinghamwhatcom.org, and on the City of Bellingham YouTube channel, as well as BTV Bellingham. No portions of this forum can be rebroadcast in part or in full without the written concession of the League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County. Questions for this forum have been prepared in advance by the League with input from the public. Those attending live may submit a question using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we will ask as many questions as time permits. Tonight, we're hosting candidates Douglas Benjamin and Jeffrey Ford, who are running for the office of Bellingham School District Director, Position 5. The 5-member school board has policy governance responsibilities in these 4 main areas: vision, accountability, structure, and advocacy. The school board believes that effective public school education must be directed toward common needs of all children, but must also consider the unique differences and the needs of individual children. Registered voters elect board members for terms of 4 years. So here are the rules. Each candidate may have a 2-minute opening statement and a 1-minute closing statement. In alphabetical order, candidate Benjamin will be going first for both opening and closing statements. Each candidate will be asked the same question, and you'll have up to 90 seconds to answer. I will alternate who goes first each time. You also each have a challenge card that you may use to challenge your opponent's response only once during the forum. Just raise your card, and then you'll have 30 seconds to present your challenge, and your opponent has 30 seconds to respond. You may only make one challenge. To help track your time, when you begin to speak, the timer screen will start counting. Then will turn yellow when there's only 15 seconds that remain. The screen will then turn red when your time is up, and if you continue to speak, well, I don't need to tell you what's going to happen. So at this point, only one of our candidates, both had confirmed, but only one candidate has actually dialed in right now, and that is candidate Benjamin. So do you have any questions, candidate Benjamin?
No, thank you.
Okay. If our timers are ready, let's go ahead and get started. Candidate Benjamin, can you please give your opening statement?
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me tonight. And I want to thank the League for putting on such a great forum. You always do a great job. The receptions you've done in the past have been very meaningful to me, and I know other candidates. So thank you for showing up during COVID and keeping us going. Really appreciate it. I know all the other candidates do too. As you introduced me, my name is Doug Benjamin. I have been on the Bellingham School Board going into my 8th year. Oddly enough, I've been elected twice before and appointed once. And there's a little bit of math to explain that. I was originally appointed to fill an unfilled term. The law allows you to serve 1 year appointed, but then you must run again. So I ran for the final 1-year term. Then the next regular term, which is now up, and so I'm now running again. So this is my 3rd election, but I've really only been on the board for basically not even quite 2 terms. During that time, I've served as board president twice. I've served as vice president twice. And my last term as president was during the first part of the pandemic. And I can tell you that was a very challenging and unusual time. I have really appreciated the opportunity to serve this district. It is a very, very high-performing district in all respects. I hope during our conversation I can share with you some of the awards that we've won. My day job is I'm a licensed mental health professional. I've worked in Bellingham for decades. I'm now in private practice. I think I moved here in 1978. So I've lived in Bellingham longer than any other place in my life. And I really love this place.
Thank you, candidate. Thank you, candidate Benjamin. As our other candidate has not shown, I'm going to go ahead and move ahead. We will, if they do join, I will seamlessly pull them into the process. Otherwise, just for equity purposes, we're going to, if they do not show, we'll keep this to 15 minutes, half its normal length. So here's your first question, candidate Benjamin. What are the 3 overall education priorities that in a perfect world you would accomplish during your time in office?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for giving me at least 3 choices because public education is a very complicated business. You know, I am a huge fan of the Bellingham Promise, and I have a copy of it here in front of me. It's a fairly simple document. It's something that it actually exists on one page. Bellingham Promise is actually our strategic plan. Most strategic plans go in a 3-ring binder and on the shelf for 5 years and nobody looks at it. I promise you that this is posted multiple times in every school and is talked about all the time. And if you, I think, want to see all of the priorities that that are important to us, you would look at the Bellingham Promise. If I were to be specific about my view, I'm concerned about preparing kids for what comes next. It's not just college now, career and technical education, other multiple paths. 75% of the jobs that our kindergartners will hold when they're finished with their education haven't even been invented yet. So we need to be loose and we need to really pioneer those avenues. I think the other is mental health. And the other that I would add as a priority is really achieving full equity, diversity, and inclusion of every child.
Thank you, candidate Benjamin. My next question here is, what steps would you take if a parent calls with complaints that a teacher is presenting material related to critical race theory in their classroom?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's happened to me. So I can tell you what I did. We had a very pleasant conversation on the phone. I listened to that parent. I wanted to understand specifically what their concern was, particularly to make sure that there was something at a board level that should be addressed. Curriculum, particularly, is not something that the board decides directly. You would think, but it's really something that we leave up to the professionals that we have engaged in the district, from the superintendent down. What the board is interested in is outcomes, ends. What do we want our children to look like when they come through our school system? How that's done is something we're going to leave up to the professionals, but we're going to hold them accountable to those ends. In this case, I would probably start by referring that person to the principal of the school, particularly if they've already spoken with the teacher, in order to share their concerns, listen to them, and hear why that piece of curriculum might be there. You mentioned critical race theory. I can tell you that that is not something that's taught in the schools. The first time I heard that term in the Bellingham public schools was probably 6 months ago, 8 months ago.
Thank you. The next question for you, candidate Benjamin, is there is evidence that a smaller percentage of Black, Hispanic, and Native American children are ready for kindergarten than are white children. What is the one thing your district could do to narrow the gap?
Well, we are underway doing something that I hope is going to narrow that gap, and it's early childhood education. We were one of the first districts in the state to have a preschool school before kindergarten. It doesn't just start at kindergarten. And I think that there's been a big effort to reach out to the community to make sure that they know that that's available. And right now, early pre-K it's an opportunity for us to go out and bring in these young children and start early. It's not necessarily like hardcore curriculum, but the data is very clear that the earlier we start, the better outcomes we have in the end. That's one thing. The other thing that I think is critically important is that we work hard on our issues of racial equity and inclusion. And also included in that would be poverty and some of the other things that keep young children maybe from having the same access that everybody else does. So I think the more we work on those issues, we know who those families are, we go out and bring them in. I can tell you that this really didn't happen in my day, but we have principals who go walk the neighborhood, and that might surprise people. And I think the more visible we are, the more friendly we are, the more those families, that's one avenue, they might reach out to us. We might be able to bring them in.
Thank you, Candidate Benjamin. The next question I have is, there are many matters affecting schools that a school board significantly and legitimately influences. Are there any areas in which a school board should keep hands off?
Yes, and I think that one of the things that's rather impressive about the Bellingham School Board and the way it operates, and this is not every school board operates this way in Washington and other places, but we've adopted what's called a policy governance model. And without going into a lot of detail, the board focuses itself and governs through policy. And what we define, as I mentioned earlier, are what we want our kids to look like in terms of their education, their character, and their opportunities. So those are outcomes. How those are achieved, none of us on the board currently are professional educators. We're community members. We have, believe me, I have some very bright colleagues that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and they're bright, capable people, but we're not professional educators. I think our number one responsibility to this community as a board is to make sure that you have a highly capable superintendent. It starts there. And that's the way that we can ensure that you get the right methodology or the right means to achieve these. And we'll leave it up to them, and we'll just hold them accountable to the outcomes. That makes sense.
Thank you. My next question is, how will you support and monitor the school district's COVID-19 health protocols for everyone on its premises, students, staff, parents, and other visitors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. In full disclosure, I have to tell you that I work in healthcare. And before I was on the school board, I spent 8 years on the local public health advisory board, and half of that time as chair. I lived through SARS, I lived through H1N1 and HIV. And I can tell you, I am a full-on public health advocate. And I think that the directives that we've received from our local public health department are spot on, and that we should listen to those. I think we're very fortunate in Washington that we have a governor who has seen clear to issue mandates for vaccine and for masks and for distancing. And I can tell you, given my bit of time in public health, those things work. They are not political. They are not, the politicizing of it, frankly, makes no sense to me. They're good health measures and they work. And so vaccine mandates, great. That's number one. And all the other mitigations, when they come together, help too. Vaccines are number one. And I totally support the mandatory vaccines for all staff. And I would support mandatory vaccines for students as well, given the few exceptions that are necessary medically and religiously.
Thank you. My next question is, what can the schools do to help students who lack internet access for virtual lessons or who struggle to use a computer?
Great question. Let me start by thanking anyone in our community who is listening and supported the tech levies that we've had, the two that we've had in the past. And I can tell you that that support for technology is what unknowingly staged us to do a reasonably good job through COVID. It hasn't been too many years ago, this was under my watch, that the infrastructure was upgraded and that we saw that every single student had a device in their hand that they went home with the exception of some of the very youngest children. Having that technology and that infrastructure is what staged us to be able to manage this COVID thing with online school. Had we not done that, I'm not sure what we would have done. The question about access is huge. You know, I'm a supporter of public internet access. I think San Francisco, some other places have done it, and that's something I would support. It's like in my day, it was television, broadcast television. It was free and it was in the air. And I think that that's the place that probably internet should go. We had a program where Comcast had a special offer for, I think, $10 a month for families who applied. And our partner, the Bellingham School Foundation, stepped up this past year and paid the $10. So we did have avenues for those who didn't have it to get it. You're welcome.
This will be the last question. And that is, how will you reach out to represent minority parents and students in your district? And how will you advocate for district personnel to reach out to underrepresented communities?
Well, that's a two-part question. How will I do it from the board? Let me answer that first. And then I can tell you what I think the district is doing and the staff that I think is been very successful and I think is staged to grow. What we do on the board and what I highly support is that we have a series of activities that we engage in throughout the year. One of those are called linkages. We call them community linkages. We have a handful a year. We target certain groups. We have met with the Latinx community. We've met with the LGBT community. We've met with the faith community, and the list goes on, where we get a targeted small group together so that we can listen to them. And we hand them the Bellingham Promise. And we say, take a look at this. Tell us what you think. How are we right on? Or are we not right on? And this document grows and changes based on that input. Those linkages are crucial, and that's just one example. We've started student roundtables during COVID, which didn't happen. The thing that the district is doing is a very robust family engagement program, and if anybody's interested, there's plenty on the district website. We've been talking lately about giving them their own facility. So
thank you, Candidate Benjamin. Well, I'm so sorry that candidate Ford wasn't able to join us. Nonetheless, we are now opening for you to provide your 1 minute closing statement, candidate Benjamin.
Thank you. And thank you again to the League for this opportunity. I am not a politician. I don't think I would have ever run for elected office had I had to start there. But I can tell you that I am so thankful to have been appointed and now in this position to continue the work that we've started. I'm very, very proud of a district that won an award just last year for a state award for our work in equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'm very proud that the superintendent that we provided you with was named Superintendent of the Year in 2020. That's evidence of good work by the board. We're a model locally, we're a model in this state, and I want to keep doing that work. And so if the voters choose to keep me there, I'm going to continue to work as hard as I can.
Thank you, candidate Benjamin. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I thank both candidates for being willing to run for public office. It's no minor feat. And voters can find more information about the candidates online at vote411.org, as well as in your voter pamphlet. Ballots will be mailed October 13th, 2021, just around the corner. And your ballot must be postmarked or in a ballot drop box before 8 p.m. on November 2nd, 2021. Please remember to sign your envelope. And if mailing by postal service, we recommend that you mail it early. There are a number of other forums that are coming up. Don't miss those. There's some coming up on Wednesday, October 13th, which is the City of Linden Council and School District. Wednesday the 13th, later that evening, the Blaine School District, 2 different director positions. Thursday the 14th, there's Blaine City Council, and there are 4 positions there. And then on Saturday, the 16th, the all-important initiatives. And there'll be a discussion and around each one of those initiatives. So I do urge you to, if you can, tune in live. If not, do look for those recordings either on BTV or on the city, on the respective city website. And also, of course, here at the League of Women Voters, LWV, BellinghamWhatcom.org. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and thanks for letting us serve you.